What I do with these old pianos, they're normally flat, sometimes a tone even more. They are built to stand at standard pitch. They are actually built to stay at 440 cycles per second at A49, which is the 49th note. And what I do is bring them back to, stretch them sharp, leave them for maybe a day, depending, and then tune them in, and usually get quite a fine tuning. But they need tuning, they do need to be tuned. The Edwardians tuned their pianos 4 times a year, but people nowadays won't, they say, oh, I'm not going to spend money on tuning, so the piano falls down, and then it takes longer to tune, and so that's why tuners leave them flat, because the owners will not pay money to bring them up to the correct pitch. But people are more interested in pianos. Somebody said to me, you know, you've got a lot to thank Elton John for. I said, what? And I suppose in a way it's true, because, you know, what about Liberace? And I think, but the piano industry is nothing like what it was. But it's still getting on there. I mean, these big companies like Broadwood and are all being swallowed up by, they're still being made, but they're being made under the name of Kemble. And Yamaha, of course, is the great Japanese piano. That actually, people think it's quite a modern thing, but Yamaha were building pianos at the turn of the century. The biggest builder of pianos is the United States of America. Something like 350,000 pianos were built around about 1915. Germany, it was 175,000 pianos, and in Britain it was 75,000. So we were quite small. Spain's got a reasonable sized industry. Austria, not so big. Germany's huge, of course, but America's the biggest. And in actual fact, I think the American pianos are probably the best. The American and the German, and the top line British ones. I do not read music at all. I think I'm slightly dyslexic. I think I'm slightly some other things as well. Middle C. In the piano, the only scale which takes in all the white notes, or does not use any black notes, is the scale of C. So, C is the first note. E is the third, and G is the fifth. So there is a major chord of C. The third note, being E, is actually the fifth note. It's the fifth one. If you count C, C sharp, D, D sharp or E flat, and E. So although you call the third note is C, the third is really the fifth. And the fifth note, which forms a chord, is really the eighth. It's the eighth note, really, because you then have E, F, G, F sharp. So a first, a third, and a fifth is really a first, a fifth, and an eighth. To make the minor, you flatten the third note, which is E flat. To diminish, you flatten both third and fifth, and add the sixth. So that's the mystery chord that goes into infinity. The other interesting one is the augmented, where you sharpen the fifth note. So C major, C augmented, you sharpen the fifth note. If you then add the sixth note, you have the C sixth. You being a guitar player will understand this. Then you have what you call the major seventh, which is adding the B. So you've got C, E, G, and B. That's the major seventh. The dominant seventh, or the melodic seventh, is the flattened seventh. So, for instance, fairly simple music, which is 3 or 4 chords. This is more of a sort of jazz chord. Folk musicians don't really use these chords. They don't need them. You want the melodic seventh. So we have the major chord of C, first, third, and fifth. The minor, flat and third. The diminished, flat and third and fifth. With the sixth added. The augmented, is C with a sharpened fifth. For instance, happy talking, talking, happy talk. Or Swanee, how I love you, how I love you. That mystery chord, it's an augmented. And then the other example of the diminished chord. Diminished chord is that chord that people, they know there's something, they're playing, they're self-taught, they know there's something missing, and the missing link, or the lost chord, I call the diminished. Carousel. If I love you, see, time and again I would try to say all I want you to know. Diminished. Augment. Sort of lead-in chords. So when I say it's a trick, it's not a trick, but it's fairly, it's a case of learning sequences. For instance, here's a sequence. Or, for instance, we've got C, A minor, D minor, G7, that's the sequence. Fish gotta swim, and birds gotta fly. Or, when I'm awfully low. The cigarette that bears the lipstick traces. It's all the same run, you see. Okay, here's another run. If you were the only girl in the world, I were the only boy. So you've got C, A, D, G. So that's here's another one. Who's sorry now? A C, E7. Who's sorry now? A7. Whose heart is aching? D for breaking each vow. G. Who's sad and blue? C. 9, 2. So it goes round and round. You see? Now that also would take in things like, please don't talk about me when I'm gone, or all of me, why don't you take all of me? Same sequence of chords, but a different melody. And this is the way I think, you see, this is what music's all about. When you get into the wonderful music of the Beatles, that they do not follow a regular sequence of chords. You got to know the chords, and things like Jobim's Girl from Ipanema and Se Desafinado, things like. They are sort of different, like. When you get to the middle eights of these tunes, I mean, they just go off and they don't follow a... That's what's so interesting about Jobim's music. The important thing is if you're playing over a dinner, you play the melody, nothing too clever. I don't think a good jazz pianist playing, it would be too busy. I find that I'm asked many times back to, because people just like, they like these old melodies, like... that sort of thing. And then changing from down to another key. That was B flat into E flat. Stardust, and then maybe run into some, and just keep tunes that they know, the old standards, which is wonderful. advantage of this is that you never have a boss. Some people, it depends if they're self-starters, but you don't have to report. You set your own hours. You can tune at night, you can tune at weekends, whatever suits. You have nobody. There's nobody there really to check your work. And I've said to people, look, remember this piano, although it sounds a lot better than it was, it's not definitely in tune. I can improve it as the months go on. Oh, but it sounds so much better. We're very grateful to you, Mr. Wilson. I say, well, remember, it can be improved. So it is a good profession in that it's fairly free, and you're self-employed. I'll never be a rich man, but it's quite satisfying work.